Okay, well, we should be online.
Butts, 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 butts,
Mob
butts.
Crush. So I'm gonna do some fart noise testing.
Yeah. Test, fart noise.
Test, fart noise, fart noise, fart noise. I gotta send the tweet out. Tweet is out. Push alert is live. A bunch of people are joining. That's good. Recording is going. I gotta go through my checklist of things. You guys ready to go? I'm ready to go.
I need about 30 minutes.
Just 30 minutes to think things over.
Yeah.
Is that what we were doing on Skype? We're about to record a podcast?
God
Not just hanging out?
damn it.
I'll be right back.
Are you serious?
No, I'm not serious.
Okay. I don't know. You can never be too sure.
That's some elite level. That's some elite trolling right there from Jared Hills.
I guess. All right. So this is you'll see this on YouTube and on Mob Crush and stuff like that. This week's sponsor for the Touch Arcade show is Tequila Games for Earthcore Shattered Elements. It's a pretty cool kind of card game that's available for free on the App Store. Check it out. All right. You guys ready to start recording officially?
Yeah.
Sure.
Okay. All right. Let's do it. I forgot what episode number we're on. All right. 216. Hey guys, what's up? You are listening to the Touch Arcade show. This is episode number 216, verified mere moments ago, being streamed live on Mob Crush as well, and or on YouTube, I guess, if you missed the live broadcast. I guess we're kind of doing these Friday afternoon, so if you got nothing going on in future weeks, I guess keep your eyes peeled for that. So got Jared and Mike, usual podcast, usual crew.
Hello.
Usual
Woo.
week. What's abnormal about this week is the amount of emails and iTunes reviews and things like that we got. So, a lot of participation at the start of the show, and I don't know if that's because we're doing Mob Crush stuff or if everyone decided to all of a sudden just start emailing us or what the deal is. But our two iTunes reviews. First one is from Mind Riot 07, not Mind Rot. He says, seriously, where did you find that song? Every week I get it stuck in my head. I usually don't realize I'm humming it until my coworkers look at me questioningly when the bass drops. Anyway, I've been a listener on and off for a long time, and I love the podcast. The addition of Mob Crush is amazing. Finally get a chance to interact with you all. Anyway, I ramble, love the podcast and the streams, and look forward to hearing your stuff every week. Can't wait to see what the future holds. Mind Riot 07. Thanks, buddy. It's a 5-star review in USA. Got a second American podcast.
Where did you get the Touch
review.
Arcade dubstep? Is that what he's talking about?
Oh, yeah, I guess we should answer that question. It's Sean Beeson, who's a iOS. Well, I don't know. It seems weird to call him an iOS games composer. He's a composer of video game music.
Yeah.
Just a solid and threw one together. I don't remember. Something big was happening around the time that made it relevant. Like, I think he was working on a big Crescent Moon title or
Yeah, something like that.
something
He
along
does
those
a
lines.
lot of Crescent Moon stuff, right? Or at least he used to.
Yeah, he does a ton of Crescent Moon stuff and other kind of
Trailer music and all
Yeah.
that jazz.
What's interesting about the business of game music is that it seems super hard to kind of make a living doing that because the budgets of iOS games are so slim these days that no one has the money to throw to a musician who charges a decent amount of money for their work, and rightfully so, because a lot of time they put it doesn't seem like it when you're just listening to some background music on an iPhone game or whatever, but like a lot of work goes into that typically.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Like with Trebello works really fast according to Mike Mead and other people I've heard, but
Mike Mead's a filthy liar.
that's another I guess he almost exclusively does iOS stuff though, doesn't he?
I don't probably.
I don't know.
I think
He's
he does
done
his
some
own.
PC
He does his own music as well for his own games.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah, so all the Whit Trebella games are all done by him. So yeah, I guess if you want the podcast music, I can put it in the post, or I guess send me an email if you want it, and I'll send you a link or whatever. I don't know, it's just kind of a theme song. I don't really think too much about it. So huge 49er fan, likely local to Jared. It says this is iOS podcast numero uno. Eli, Jared, and sometimes Mikey host a show with a little edge and a very realistic view of the gaming world. They focus not only on games, but the world that makes up the gaming community and business environment. If you want a no-spin podcast to find some really nice gems in the muck of the App Store, this is the one. They deserve money, but I'm the gamer who waits for everything to go on sale, so I'll give them a 5-star rating and a review instead. It would be 5.5 stars if they had accents. So
we could have accents.
That's as far as I can do.
Start working on that. So we got a ton of email this week, a lot of questions and things like that. So I figured we'll go through them all and just clear the plate for next week. So we'll see what we get next week. Eric emails us. He says it's Eric with a K, mind you. He says, "Hey guys, long time listener, back in the Open Faint days," which holy shit, that is a long time ago. That's when like Arn and Blake used to be on the podcast and had Blake's loud. If you think I have the world's loudest keyboard, it is nothing compared to Blake's keyboard.
You should probably put an Open Faint icon in the corner of the podcast.
That'd be funny. He says, although I am probably one of the few who listen but rarely read the site, the podcast is a great format for staying up on mobile gaming while being mobile. Bottom line up front, the podcast is great, which is why it's outlasted several competitors. However, there are a few things, in my opinion, that would make it better. So strap in for some criticism, boys. Simply put, replace Brad. Mike may add a few laughs in a different perspective, no offense, but crucial elements have disappeared. And he lists structure because Brad kept things tight and moving at a great pace.
Muscles, energy.
Yeah, this is the next thing is energy. Brad's energy levels were through the roof, basically. Anyway, he says, good luck with your Patreon. I look forward to more years of hearing your lovely voices.
Hatred of mobile games. I'm just kidding.
Kind of goes on talking about, let's see. You mentioned Bulking a while back as a unique game, but it seems to me it's just another one-tap game. Version of games like Slam Dunk Basketball, US Basketball Star Dunk from 2011, 2012. And yeah, actually, that's what's kind of interesting about the App Store in a way is that you have all these games come out now that launch better than like a lot of very early games that have done, like pretty shitty because the App Store was small and people were just kind of figuring it out and stuff like that. But you look at these newer games and you're like, oh my God, this is amazing. Ball King invented this.
Yeah.
When in reality, it's like, well, no, this has been done like 10 times before, and you just forgot about those because there's been like 300,000 games that have come out since then, and all that stuff.
Especially older games that were 99 cents or something that never caught on, like really older games.
Yeah, exactly. Someone
just does a free version of it or something, and then it.
That's the thing, like the scale of stuff, it was kind of nuts. I mean, because like back in the day, and without looking up these games, I don't know if they're 99-cent games or not, but I mean, most likely if they came out 2011, 2012, like if you had a 99-cent game and you sold like 10,000 copies of it, you're like, man, that's fucking amazing. Like that's great.
Yeah,
this is the best thing ever. But now it's like, with a free ad-based game, 10,000 downloads is like a failure of the highest order. So you're talking like an order of magnitude difference in the amount of people that are like both playing and talking about your game. So it's kind of tricky. He also mentions that in a show we mentioned Line in Japan, and he says he spent a few months over there, and he's sure, as well as Sean Musgrave can probably attest to, it really is all the rage over there. He says one of his friends was single, and the girls he would meet would all add him on Line, and they would communicate in more emoji than text, according to him. Just kind of crazy. And we were talking, one last thing in his email, he said we were talking about the... Like remember when we were talking about kids playing video games and ending their play sessions with please like and subscribe and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So we used to do that as a kid, but it was just like pretending you're the radio DJ on mixtapes, which I totally forgot about.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. I guess thanks Eric for the email, and thanks for listening and all that fun stuff. So we got another email from Matthew, another kind of long response to the one that he sent before. So I'll just kind of sum it up. He basically kind of going on about what upsets him about the kids that have zero problem spending $60 on Call of Duty and stuff like that, just kind of go crazy on the App Store, refusing to basically spend anything. And he'd rather spend $9.99 or even $20 for a full featured game on the App Store. Which, yeah, I mean, I agree, but I mean, the rest of the market very much does. I mean, we kind of posted a news story this morning, I guess, about Marvel. What is it? Champion of Heroes, Marvel
Contest of Champions.
Contest of Champions. Just crossed $100 million overall gross, which
That is crazy.
it's crazy, but like that's kind of the problem is, like when you talk about how like, it would be so much better if and how much you'd rather just pay, $10 or $20 for an iOS game, like it's just not the reality of the market in any stretch of the imagination anymore. I mean, it's just crazy the amount of money people will spend on free to play stuff.
Yeah.
And kind of as we mentioned before, it was I think it comes a lot from the fact that the people that are spending money on free to play stuff aren't necessarily identifying it as spending money on a game. It's attacked from a completely different kind of, I guess, spending thought process pathway in their brain. And that, it's not like, oh, I'm buying a video game for $60. It's like, oh, I'm buying this thing I want, which is being compared to other things you want, such as beers at bars and all other sorts of things like that. So it's tricky. He thinks some PC games that would do really well on the iPhone or iPad would be Lord of the Rings, Battle for Middle-earth, Star Wars Empire at War, and Neverwinter Nights. And I agree with that. Like you see those little kind of niche games doing really well, like the Baldur's Gate games seem to be doing pretty well and stuff like that. So, there's an audience there. It's just a matter of, I guess finding it in a way that energizes people to give you money. Because I feel like all too often we post stuff on TouchArcade where it's like, oh man, this is a really awesome game, and they're asking for a really fair price, and this seems like something that people that always hate free to play stuff would be into, but it just doesn't happen for one reason or another, which is usually kind of soul shattering when you see that, which happens quite often.
Yeah.
I don't know what the most recent example of that would be, but they're usually not hard to come up with because there's so many.
Yeah.
He's curious. He got a question for Mike though. He says, "Does Mike Mead look like Mikey, similar from Mikey Boots?"
Yes.
And
100%.
Yeah, it almost it's this perfect pixel likeliness. In fact, I would say that he always has that kind of confused, not quite cross-eyed, but sort of cross-eyed look.
This is
The
true.
raised brows. Yes.
I think the only difference in Mike Mead's physical appearance in the real world compared to Mike Mead and Mikey Shorts is that Mike Mead and Mikey Shorts is way taller. And I don't know if that's just because of like pixel ratios or whatever to make the character look right.
Yeah, I think the aspect ratio is funkier. So, in real life, I'm much more squished down. I'm very tiny.
But he says, keep up the great work. He really enjoys the podcast. He also likes a podcast called 3 Moves Ahead, which I haven't looked up, but I'm going to check out. And he likes the RPG Reload podcast as well. So thanks again for an email. I guess keep them flowing. So another email. This is, let's see, how many more do we have left? So 3 more emails. This is one of the 3. Yeah, seriously, I told you, like, the amount of email we got this week was nuts. So Cameron emailed us. He says, "Hey guys, awesome show this week," or I guess last week more accurately. He really liked the response to the email he received, and he had a bit of a follow-up and or evolution of the topic. He says, "I used to be in the camp that most mobile gamers are regarding the price of games. If it wasn't free, I didn't play it. I'm really not sure why I fell into that mindset other than the fact that I started gaming on an iPod Touch as a kid. My parents controlled the Apple ID. However, I've noticed that I've completely changed my position recently, playing very few of the ad-supported timer-dependent free-to-play games and appreciating the paid games' polish and quality. I really like how Apple has been promoting these kind of games with their Pay Once section on the App Store, but I'm not sure that's enough to get people start considering actually paying developers for their work. So my question to you is this. What do you think Apple or developers can do to start to turn the tide on the generally negative stigma that paid games have with the vast majority of mobile gamers? What innovation or promotion can be executed at a large enough scale to start in this direction? Although I agree that free-to-play games are definitely have a spot on the App Store, paid games certainly need a boost. He'd love to hear our opinions on this. He's a huge fan of the show and a happy patron of our work. Thanks for supporting our Patreon. He says, keep up the great stuff we're doing, including the streams on ModCrush. He loves tuning into these, especially the Vainglory sessions. So that's Eric at night. That game deserves more widespread coverage. I'm glad you guys are spotlighting it when you can.
Eric at night.
Eric at night. So yeah, I don't know. It's. What do you guys think? What innovation or promotion could really kind of spin this around at this point?
I don't know. I still feel like it's like developers need to look at it as two separate things. Like there's the mainstream market that you can target, or there's like the more niche market that you can target. And you need to be like happy with that. So if you're gonna make like a paid game, realize you're not gonna be in the top charts or get massively featured all the time or have 100 million users or anything like that. But know that you'll have like a dedicated smaller fan base that's more willing to give you like 10 or 15 or 20 bucks for your game and be happy with it and like really serve those people's needs. And I feel like too often people just get confused. So
I think
I
it's
don't know.
really
That's
easy to get discouraged too when your game isn't like charting, even though
yeah,
it's like, well, you're charging $10 for it. Like it's not going to chart. Like
yeah,
it's not possible to get the volume to chart.
yeah. Unless you're Minecraft.
Well, yeah.
But it's also interesting that it's funny to think about like, oh, I grew up as a kid playing on an iPod Touch, and I'm like, iPod Touches aren't that old, but they sort of are.
Yeah.
And it's like especially depending on what ages you are. I mean, you can go from 12 to 20 in the amount of time the iPod's been around. So it's like kind of funny to think about that. I think of like something like an iPod or iPhone as like if you had that when you're a kid, you're still a kid, right? But not necessarily. but but yeah, it's interesting that as a younger person, you would have something like an iPod Touch, and all you'd really have is free games to download, and that's probably all your friends played at school and stuff like that. So you were sort of like brought up on this whole like games are free, and all the free to play stuff that comes with it is just normal, and you don't really care about that because you don't really know any better or whatever. And then as you get older and you're exploring gaming more, and you're finding like, oh hey, here's a game I just pay this money for once and then play it to my heart's content or whatever. That's a totally different experience.
Yeah.
And I think it's interesting. Like I think people have their preferences and stuff like that, but I don't think there's anything wrong with liking all types of games, which is really how I think most of us are. In that, yeah, I play a bunch of free to play games that most people would think are gross or whatever or whatever. It's time killers to me that I enjoy, but I also will like sit down with a game and spend hours at a time playing through something that's quote unquote premium game or whatever. So I think that's good to broaden your horizons like that and kind of check things out. But I also don't think it's a either or type thing. Like you don't have to be like, well, I only play free to play games or I only play premium games or like whatever.
Right.
You really should be open to playing any types of games and kind of judging them on what type of game they are and their merits, um, rather than blanket statements about this whole type of game is bad or good or whatever.
Yeah. I always kind of thought the notion of I remember, I guess this, man, I don't even remember what year this would have been, like 2010, 2011, maybe, when like the notion of the premium app store
Yeah.
was kind of a thing.
Yeah.
And if you, I guess if you weren't around for all those rumors, it was basically like the gist of it was people were saying that Apple was considering doing kind of like, I guess what it would amount to like when you go to a bar and there's like the top shelf liquor, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, you'd have like, I mean, that seems like a really good comparison actually. You have like the top shelf games, which would be like, and again, this was rehashed so many times that I don't remember what the original kind of rumory thing was, but yeah, the stuff people were throwing out was like a section of the App Store that had like a minimum price, that had some kind of quality control similar to like the Nintendo seal of approval sort of thing.
Yeah.
And a lot of people were really hung up on the idea of like this section of the App Store can't have price drops.
Yeah.
Because that was a big thing at the time that was really damaging consumer confidence in the App Store. Was like, you see a game that came out that you're really excited for, pay $5, $6, $7, $8, $9, even $10 for it, whatever. And then the developer would panic like 3 days later because it's not charting, and then like slash it down to 99 cents.
Yeah.
So I never really knew for sure if the idea of the premium app store was like a real rumor or just like so many people wanting that it just kind of turned into like one of those circle jerks that became like some kind of weird reality of sorts.
I don't think it was something Apple was actually considering, but I think if you think about it, they sort of ended up doing that in a way with the way they feature things and the types of features they have.
Yeah.
But I remember at the time, because I feel like if you went back and you wrote like the biography of free to play in the mobile world,
right,
and you like tracked everything that kind of led to where we're at right now, there's so many different factors, but one of them I think was really the ability to drop prices on a whim, and all competing developers being like, oh crap, this guy's selling his thing for 99 cents and he's getting all these downloads, and mine is 5.99. I better drop the price, or like you said, freaking out after just a few days because they don't see themselves on charts, and hitting the panic button, which equated to the 99-cent button.
Yeah,
And
which only served to piss people off, and it was like your core audience just paid $7 for your game, and then 3 days later you're freaking out and just
yeah, it
trying
was
to...
very backwards. I mean, if you had people that were following the development of your game and they're excited to buy it when it comes out and stuff like that, um, that's the audience you should really be catering for the most. And what ended up happening was they were doing things backwards, where it was like they'd launch at the price they wanted to sell their game for. All those dedicated people that have been following along instantly bought it because they were excited about the game, and then 2 or 3 days later, or sometimes just a few hours later, price would drop to 99 cents, and then it's like a whole bunch of other people were like, oh, I'm just picking it up because it's on sale. Like, I don't even never even heard of this before,
Yeah.
whatever, and that would really aggravate those people that were following you and believed in you from the very beginning.
Yeah.
And I totally get that. That's like an emotional state detached from like how much pricing is or how much you want to spend, and things like that. That's just like I invested, some personal part of me into this, and then the game came out, and I believed in you, and I bought it for the money you wanted and all this stuff, and then you turn around and you kind of like feels like you stabbed me in the back by dropping it down to $1. Now all these chumps are picking it up that are just
that was kind of
sales.
Like the interesting psychological phenomenon about that was like the other side of people getting pissed off because like other people were playing the game that hadn't paid as much as they did. Like it almost seemed
weird.
like people didn't get as pissed that they spent more money as much as other people were able to spend less money.
Right.
Which I don't know. Like well, it's a complicated thing. Like any way you slice it,
but it's one of those things that really did kind of train people to wait because of that feeling of I got burned, and when you take a step back and you look at things from sort of like a practical perspective, it's like, no, things go on sale the older they get. That's sort of what makes sense. But in an ideal world, they'd be like, hey, we had a launch price for all the people that are paying attention, have been following us for the first day it's out, it's going to be on sale. So you're sort of getting rewarded for being invested in this game, and then everyone else that comes and stumbles into it later is going to have to pay the higher price. That seems like the way it should be, but nothing's really like that. I mean,
No.
If you go buy anything, it's higher price the newer it is, and then it just goes down from there, typically. So,
Right.
So it was like kind of like on one side you're like, well, what do you guys expect? Haven't you ever bought anything, like literally anything? And on the other side, it's like, well, I can understand where people were coming from, where they're like, man, I was invested in this game and all this stuff, and then I put my money up there to show my support, and then I feel like I got burned.
Yeah.
And so yeah, it really kind of trained people to wait for sales, which kind of led everyone to have sales, which kind of led everyone to not want to spend more than $1 because they felt like they might be risking their money. And then, of course, $1 became free, and so then it was like, well, there's so many games out there, and they're always going on sale at least eventually. And I'm patient, so why ever buy anything?
Yeah.
And I mean, if you lived strictly by that, where you're like, say you got an iPhone 5 or 6 years ago, and you're like, I'm gonna never pay for a single thing for this iPhone ever, you would have folders upon folders of amazing stuff that you've collected over the years that you got all for free at some point in time. You know what I mean? Which is kind of crazy to think about. So I don't know. It's just nuts. And then here we are today. We have like free to play stuff, which is sort of trying to counteract all of those things. So
well, I mean, the interesting wrinkle about free to play compared to premium is the wide variety of methods that you have to promote your free to play game and kind of try to revitalize your free to play game and all sorts of other things like that. Like the amount of tweaking and tuning you can do of your monetization and all different cross promotion networks and things like that. As opposed to if you have a paid game and it launches terribly and you don't get featured and stuff like that, you're kind of SOL.
Yeah.
Which kind of like, I feel like that more than anything else, if you could put your finger on like one thing that would really turn this around, it would be a promotional vectors for paid games that kind of worked as well as the existing free to play ones do. Because like, it's much shit as people like to give the all the crazy in-game ads that are becoming so normal now in games. Like the reason that those exist is because they work.
Yeah.
Like people after watching a 30-second commercial for a game to get a free life in another game that they care about, like eventually they're going to hit a game where like, hey, that actually looks pretty cool, let me download that.
Right.
And I just the scale that makes free to play work just can't really apply to the paid world, which
Yeah.
kind of
I still think, I mean, there might be a solution to something like a premium app store or something like that. Because at the
maybe.
time, what I really thought was like, it's that confidence that people are scared they're gonna, buy something for more money than it's gonna be later on. Um, so if you had an app store that was like, hey, here's the free to $3 tier, and then here's the $3 to $7 tier, and then here's the 7 to 15 or something like that, to where like, oh, okay, well I'm gonna buy this game for 15, and even if it went completely on sale, as far as it could go would be like 7 or something like that.
Yeah.
Like it might make you feel a little bit better to be like, oh, I spent this $15 on this game that's free tomorrow. That sucks,
Right.
So it,
Yeah, I mean
something
that's
like
a good
that. But
point.
I still don't know how logistically that would work with the
Yeah.
App Store.
That's the problem. Like in order for something like that to have happened, like it needed to have happened like 5 years ago.
Yeah.
Like not now. Like that's kind of the problem. And to that kind of argument too. I mean, like I buy a shitload of 3DS games that I like don't even like some games I don't even play.
Tell me about it. Yeah.
Because it's just like there's typically in the world of 3DS stuff, there's no reason to wait because especially first party Nintendo stuff, like a first party Nintendo 3DS game launches at $40. And it'll probably be $40 as long as 3DS games are sold at retail, which makes the used price, like maybe 30-ish, unless it's like a super terrible game.
They'll occasionally have sales on the eShop too, but it's like nothing like App Store sales. It'll be like, oh, this virtual console game was $250, now it's like $2.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's cool, it's on sale, but it's not like, hey, this $40 game is now all of a sudden 15 or something like that, which would make me be like, well, I'm gonna buy that.
Right. Yeah.
So,
I don't know. It's tricky. I just don't know how you get that consumer confidence back without like strict regulation from Apple. And if Apple has shown anything, it's that they just don't give a shit about stuff like that on the App Store.
It feels too late for that now.
Yeah.
Because now everybody expects things on your mobile to be free, and not even really just games. I mean, try and tell somebody about a really awesome weather app or something, and even show it to them and impress them and stuff, and then be like, "Hey, it's $2.99." They'd be like, "Oh, what?"
No, totally. Yeah, I tell people all the time, like, I use Dark Sky on my phone. It's like one of my favorite weather apps, And like I'll get push alerts when I'm out with friends and stuff like that. It'll be like at flea market or somewhere outside, and we get a push alert. It's like, oh, rain's starting soon. I'll be like, oh shit, guys, like we gotta hurry it up because it's gonna start raining pretty soon. And it's like they look at that app like it's magic, and to some extent, like that kind of, I mean, when you think about the technology that goes into an app like Dark Sky, like they, tracking your location on your phone, figuring out your weather and like incoming weather patterns, and then sending you a push alert based on that, like that, it's incredible. And you can buy that for $3, right? And as soon as they tell people it's $3, like, I don't know. It's like, what the? You were just genuinely impressed by what my phone did, but that's not worth $3 to you. Like, all right, cool.
It's weird, right?
I guess
whatever.
So, and that's something that, I mean, it's already been sold to them, right? Because it's like, you saw how it worked. Like, I'm showing you, you're impressed. Like, $3, let's do it.
Yeah, you can even have a in-your-face demo showing someone how awesome something is. Think of like an app that just has their icon sitting in the store, and that's what they're banking on.
Yeah. So, I don't know. I guess that's a super long response to a question that I don't know if there necessarily is an answer to. Hopefully someone figures it out eventually, but the problem is until I think what it's going to take for Apple to really start kind of looking at stuff like this is for them to start having quarters where they're not making as much money as they used to.
Good luck.
Because like I think it's really easy to look at these kind of problems and be like, hey, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Like we're making more money every single quarter than we've ever made before. We're the biggest company in the world or close to it. And all this other stuff. So it's like, who fucking cares? But I promise you, as soon as their numbers start sliding, they're going to start taking some real close looks at like, potential revenue sources that aren't being totally, optimized and stuff like that. And I think at that point, like the App Store might actually get some love at some point, maybe.
Well, So here's how I look at it: is like, okay, Marvel Contest of Champions makes $100 million. The game's been around for 6, 7 months, something like that. $100 million. What's the last video game that made that much money that was a paid game? Like maybe Minecraft, I guess, but I'm not even sure if they've hit that mark. Um, there isn't any other paid games that would make $100 million in 7 months on the App Store. There
Yeah.
just isn't. Even ones that were selling for like $20. So it's just like insane to me to think like Apple, they don't care. They get 30% of that 100 million.
No, that's true.
So they're
That's
not going to
true.
be like, hey, stop being that free to play game that gets people to pay money constantly and go be this pay once game that we think is better, but it'll make us a fraction of the cost or a fraction of the money. So I don't know. It's a tricky thing for them because I think if you went like at a morality level or whatever with people at Apple, they probably are like, man, I hate this free to play crap. It feels skeezy. People are always getting mad at they accidentally buy things or the kids buy things or whatever. I feel like it's bad all around and really not Apple's sort of thing, but it's making them so much money that they're just like, well, whatever.
Yeah, and I've heard like anecdotally, and I don't know how true this is. Like people love talking shit at WWC and stuff like that. But I've heard that people that are like very high up in like App Store marketing and kind of all those like not quite executive tier but pretty close up to it are like they play Candy Crush and stuff like that, and they're like, man, this game's amazing, like
Yeah.
stuff like that. So like if the people that are making the decisions are the ones that are also playing free to play stuff, like they probably don't look at it as any kind of problem, and all these whiny developers just need to figure their shit out or
Yeah.
whatever, which I don't know. So thanks a ton for the email, Cameron. Thanks for listening to the show and all that fun stuff. So
Sorry about the tangent.
yeah. Well, let's take a quick break and get a word in from our sponsor, and then we'll come back with 2 additional emails and what's turning into the ultimate fan feedback episode of the TouchArcade show. So stick with us. All right, so I'm going to read the ad for podcast and YouTube purposes, but, like we usually do, I'm going to edit this out later and record it better. They actually sent me custom background music this time around, so...
Ooh.
So, yeah. Again, as we mentioned at the start of the show, Tequila Games for Earth Core Shattered Elements is the sponsor this week. So here's the ad that they're having us read. And this is the first time I'm reading it, so if I stumble over it, rip. It's the next big thing in digital card games. Earthcore Shattered Elements brings new ideas to the table with unique battle mechanics and revolutionary card crafting. In Earthcore, players can create powerful heroes with special abilities and game-changing spells. There are literally thousands of cards to discover and employ during battles in the thrilling single-player campaign and challenging multiplayer modes. With infinite tactical opportunities, Earthcore Shattered Elements takes card battling to a new and exciting realm. Download it for free on the App Store. That was pretty good for a first shot.
Not bad.
Not too fucking shabby. Mike, are you dead? Someone's asking in chat.
Are you dead?
Oh, I'm alive. There's just construction around. See here? Can you hear the noise?
Not really.
People are holding an amateur wrestling league above me, I think.
Wow. No talking about wrestling makes people angry.
It's true.
All right, well, let me bring it back in, and we can finish these last 2 emails. Wait a minute, maybe we have 3 emails. Oh, there's 3 more emails. I lied. All right. Hey guys, what's up? We're back. We actually have 3 more emails. I lied, so sorry. This one is from Apple Matt, who you may remember from the TouchArcade party, Mike.
I like Apple Matt.
Apple Matt's a good guy.
He has no influence on anything to do with developers or anything.
Yeah, none.
But he's still all right.
I don't know if that's true or not. Like, I feel like it wouldn't surprise me if Tim Cook is just like a patsy for Apple Matt.
It could be.
Like,
he did give the vibe that he was undercover or somewhat secretive.
Yeah.
Even though he kept saying, no, I just do tech stuff.
Yeah, it's like, no, I'm just an engineer. It's like, nah, we can see right through that. He's like, Tim Cook is like, you remember the show VIP with Pamela Anderson?
Yes.
I know what that is. I thought you were going to say undercover boss or something.
Oh, no.
You're
well,
like,
that
VIP
would work. That would work too. But no, I think that Tim Cook is the VIP's Pamela Anderson. and Apple Matt is actually the one that's calling all the shots. I don't remember the guy on the show that actually did all the work though, because you remember it was like a cop show.
He is a blonde bombshell, Apple
I
Matt.
don't remember either.
I don't know. I don't remember. I all I remember was that the TV in my bedroom as a kid got I had one of those with the knobs on it, and you had the UHF and the VHF knobs, and does anyone know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Knobs.
All right.
You're
So
always talking
the
about
top
knobs.
knob broke off, so I didn't get like 2, 5, 7, 9, 11, like the lower channels. I only could get the top channels, which in Chicago was like 32, 44, which was the Spanish channel, and then channel 50, which was the channel that did nothing but play Baywatch and VIP reruns.
It was the Pamela Anderson network.
Basically, yeah. So I've wasted many hours of my life watching VIP. So I guess that's where that weird reference comes from.
That's a thing you were admitting in public.
Hey, whatever.
Well, Apple Matt did run in slow motion a bunch.
Yeah.
At the WWDC party.
Yeah. So anyway, Apple Matt says, and this email is actually from July 9th, and we missed it in the spam. So if you were like Apple Matt and sent us an email and we didn't read
That's
it,
how important he is.
No, I feel bad. No, like, whatever. So he says, "Hi, podcast crew. I just read this article on TA by Brittany Broder about women getting involved in mobile games or lack thereof. And I guess to set the scene, we posted. I think basically like we're always looking for new writers, but we're kind of trying to get more women on our team because we used to have like Nisa and Colette and stuff like that, and recent people that emailed us has all been dudes, which is fine, but I think it's better to have a more well-rounded kind of representation of people, I guess, on your team, especially in editorial sense. So anyway, he says, I thought it was a great point, and I think having a diverse set of perspectives on what's cool in gaming is always a good thing. I know it's always enlightening for me when I ask people outside my normal group of enthusiasts what they're playing right now. He says, as a fairly frequent TA podcast listener, I tried to think back to the last time I heard a woman on the podcast and couldn't think of a time for sure. I think Nisa might have been one of them, but I'm not 100% sure on that. What do you think about having some female representation on the podcast at least once in a while? Maybe Brittany would be interested. Congrats on your Patreon and mom crush success and keep up the good work. I'm totally open to it.
Yeah.
I guess the main problem, if you even call it that, is just these are thrown together very last minute on Friday. We don't really schedule anything, and all our freelancers typically work like normal jobs or are in school and stuff like that, which I realize is not really a great excuse, but that's kind of why it all comes down to.
This was on the podcast long ago.
Yeah, and I guess the bigger problem more recently is like what's kind of tricky about the podcast is we do this stuff like all day long, and like I like having kind of a authoritative sort of stance on things, I guess, from just overall experience and stuff like that. And Nisa and Colette were really the last two female freelancers we had that actually like stuck around for a really long time. So it made for like pretty interesting discussions because we could talk about, like, oh, remember that review you wrote like last year and stuff like that. We're just kind of in a problem of just like retaining freelancers just in general because online journalism doesn't pay great, and I don't know. Yeah. Anyone listening to this, like, I wish I could just wave a magic wand and fix this problem, but like, all I can say is we're trying.
Yeah.
And
the other weird thing is it's hard to find somebody that actually knows the mobile gaming scene for the last several years at least.
That actually is, yeah. I mean, that's a
lot of people
problem.
Are like, yeah, I got an iPad like a year ago, and so they'll come across a game that's maybe been done a million times before, but it's new to them, and they'll be like, wow, this is so crazy, and they'll go off writing these crazy things about how unique and amazing it is, and then one of us will have to be like, oh yeah, in 2009 this game did that, and then this other game in 2010 did that, or whatever. Yeah. So it's like hard to also find people that are familiar just with the history of the mobile gaming, like we have, because we've just sort of been here since the beginning. So
yeah, and that is like super tricky because I try to. It's hard because like recruiting people is really difficult because of like it's such a specific skill set that we're looking for, like. It almost requires you basically put it perfectly. Like you can't be someone that, I mean, I guess you could, but it doesn't really work out too well when you're like someone that just got an iPhone like yesterday and are really excited for iPhone gaming, want to write about it. Like, yeah, that's cool, but like the management overhead of explaining like, well, that's actually been done before, and here's
Yeah.
here's where community thinks of this, and all that stuff. It's just, I don't know, it's tricky, and like as time goes on, it's harder and harder and harder to find people that have a good base of overall knowledge on iOS gaming, like regardless of sex. So I don't know. It's tricky, and I really wonder if other kind of more mainstream gaming sites have kind of similar issues as gaming is getting bigger and bigger and bigger. Or I guess if you want to go freelance for like Polygon or whatever, if there's like, oh, you have an Xbox, cool, let's do it.
Yeah. I get the impression from reading other mainstream gaming sites or whatever, like almost all of them have been gaming since they were alive.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And whether they're only 20 years old or their 30s or 40s or whatever, it all goes back to their very beginnings. So even someone that's like writing about Xbox One and PS4 today, they were, even if they're on the younger side, they were still like, yeah, when I was a kid, I had N64 or whatever.
Yeah.
They still have that history because they've been gaming the entire time. You rarely see someone that's like, I've lived my whole entire 30 years without playing a video game, and then I bought an Xbox last year, and now I'm really into games, and I want to write about them.
Yeah, that's
like,
true.
You just don't really see that happen.
But we do run into that a lot with, like, mobile
with mobile, though, it's normal. It's like, holy crap, I never had an iPhone before. Now that I have one, there's all these games and stuff, and they're so cool, and I could see how that could happen. And it doesn't really happen with, like, console and PC gamers, I would say. At least not as much.
I mean, it's man, I don't know. It's hard because it's not like you could fault people for not being around since the beginning either, because like the App Store 2008, 2009 like wasn't great, and the iPhone wasn't. I mean, it was good, but it wasn't like how it is now,
Mm-hmm.
So it's like you had to have been like a really early adopter and stuck around forever and be really interested in writing about video games and okay with not making too much money and all this other stuff, and it just like kind of piles up to being really, really hard to find people. And then if you find the right person, like they might not even stick around for more than a couple of weeks, which is really frustrating in its own right. So as I said, we're trying. So I don't know what to say other than that. I wish I could solve this problem yesterday, but it's tricky. We actually just got a few new female writers that have gotten their paperwork in. We got a new article published today. I feel like an asshole because I'm not entirely sure how to pronounce her Portuguese name. I think it's Tanya.
I would say Tanya.
Tanya.
But
Tanya. Maybe I should ask because I sound like a jerk. But this is kind of. I mean, that kind of goes to show like I know people that write for me based on like the name that pops up in chat or in email and stuff like that. Like we're just interested in people excited about games. I guess. I don't know. I don't know what to do about it. But another email from, so thanks Apple Matt for the email. Appreciate it. Thanks for listening to the show and coming to our GDC parties and stuff like that. Another email from, let's see, we got two left. Which one do we want to do first? Let's do the iPod Touch one last. So Andrew Johnson says he's got a possible Hearthstone newcomer solution. Says, hi, I listen to the podcast, and I agree with you that the number of expansions is making it difficult for a newcomer to Hearthstone to have a positive experience coming in fresh from running Face Hunter for cheap. You must purchase the campaign expansions and spend all gold on Arena to have a shot. But there are still key cards you must have quick. I have an inspired solution from Pokemon. And apparently, Pokemon will give promotional giveaways for shiny legendary Pokemon sometimes. He says, why doesn't Blizzard give periodic gifts like that? And he talks about like the important kind of legendary cards and stuff like that. He said it would really kill the meta to equip newcomers with the standard issue tools they need and everyone else has. Anyway, he says he enjoys the podcast and curious what I think. So I don't know. I think the problem, like the more I think about the Hearthstone problem, like the more I kind of wonder if I'm approaching this the wrong way, because when you think about it, like you have answers to every problem, or I guess not problem, but you have in the free to play cards, you have a answer to every threat that a player could play against you. I mean, like like the big streamers and YouTubers and stuff like that have done multiple runs to Legend with totally free to play decks and stuff like that. So I really think that it's and I kind of spent a lot of time thinking about this. I think it's kind of a logical fallacy almost to think that the cards that you have is determining your performance in a collectible card game like this. Because when you like look at someone like Amaz or Trump or any of the huge popular pro Hearthstone players, it's like, what's separating you from them? Particularly like when you look at how they're able to perform with exclusively free to play cards, and it's not their card base. It's like the skill and the depth of knowledge that they have in the game and things like that. So I kind of think I've been looking at this the wrong way in the past, in that like it doesn't really matter what cards you have as long as you just keep playing and keep learning the game and keep trying to understand your failures and things like that. Because you'll earn more cards as you're doing that. And I don't know. I think it would be, I think it's probably a better way to approach Hearthstone from the aspect of like, oh hey, this is a cool free game. Let me try to learn it slowly and get cards slowly, instead of like, oh, I'm gonna spend $60 on the 2 adventures and then drop another $100 on cards and stuff like that, and then just have $160 worth of stuff that you don't really know what to do with, and you're just getting frustrated because you're getting beaten and all that stuff, and it doesn't make sense because you have all the good cards but you're not winning and all that stuff. So I don't know.
I think with League of Legends, like another popular free to play game that we often mention is a very like a nice free to play in a way. It was where you don't really start on an even playing field. Like if you just download the game, you don't have the same exact stats as someone who has played it longer.
Well, that's kind of like a very minor thing though. You're talking about like runes and masteries and stuff.
Yeah, because it's like that's what you're basically earning or unlocking. It's just like any game where even back in the day when I used to play Hook Champ, like before you can really go for high scores, you had to unlock all the upgrades, which took a while, but you're just sort of playing through the game, and then I know they had it tough first. It took forever to collect, and I think they've since fixed that, but like it took forever. Then once you got all the upgrades, you can go back and speed run everything and try to get the high scores because you had everything upgraded. Then it was about figuring out whatever strategies to take shortcuts and whatnot. But like League of Legends, I know it's somewhat minor, but I mean, I guess it wouldn't affect you probably anyway in the lower the lower divisions of if you're playing.
I mean, the thing is,
if you're in the higher divisions and you don't have that stuff, then you'd be in trouble maybe. But
I don't think that's necessarily possible though, because in League of Legends you're getting ranked of people of similar skill set, so as you're ranking up to level 30 and slowly unlocking all that stuff, you're most likely playing with people that are kind of similar to you in both your loadout and skill level,
Yeah, I don't know if they take into account what you're
I mean, like when you think about it, like if the game thinks that you are capable of being matched up against like level 30 people that have all the shit that you don't, like you're probably a very good player.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean those are I think fairly minor stats. I mean, you do get a little bit of extra stuff. Like I think that really, it does, I'm sure it affects the pros. But
my analogy would be like, a race car driver on a racetrack. Somebody like grew up racing the same track over and over and knows every line inside and out, knows where to brake and where to gas, and knows everything about it. Then someone goes out and buys the fastest car you can buy, way, way faster than that guy's car. The dude with the slower car will still beat you because he knows the track inside and out. He knows everything to do. And the guy with the big muscle car that goes super fast doesn't really know what to do with it. So it's not really going to help him in the long run,
Yeah. Yeah, that was always like when I used to be super into cars as a idiot teenager and stuff like that. That was always kind of fascinating about like autocross events, was you would have people that were like really fucking good at driving, that being like a stock stick shift Toyota Tercel or something like that. They were just ripping it up. And then you had like the people like me that had the fucking CRX with the fart can exhaust and stuff like that, that just like totally failed and stuff like that. And it all just comes down to skill. That is a really good example.
Yeah, I don't think it's the gear that makes the person. So
I think with free to play, it's they need those upgrades and things, even if just that's how they make their money.
Well, I think it's really easy though,
and everything too. The customization of your player, your champion's looks is another IAP.
Well, I would also argue that like if you're one of those like you could also be a person that played from the beginning and knows the game inside and out, and also bought all the best cards or whatever too. Um, but I think more than anything, like games like that are balanced in mind of, if you have this card that seems like it's super powerful in a certain way, you're sacrificing something else, whether you realize it right now or not. And so you're going to need to learn how to use that thing properly. And if you aren't, then it's not really going to be much help to you anyway.
Yeah.
Is
Yeah.
that I like the Rocket League. I don't know if you guys have played Rocket League at all.
Not yet.
But that's something that's you start off everyone on the same page pretty much. I think because everything is it's a paid game,
Mm-hmm.
so everything else is just customizing your car. I think, but there's a very few minor hitbox things with the different cars that you unlock. But I think it's fairly minor. But they tried to make it so everyone's even when they're playing, like But then you watch some of like the better players play, and you could see that just the amount of time with their experience, they're just like flying through the air hitting the ball, and it's like everyone else is like, what's going on, how is that happening? But I think that's like a practice, like practice makes perfect for that. And
Yeah. And I think
you're pretty even to start off, I think.
Yeah.
Like in terms of the cars and everything.
But the problem specifically with collectible card games, though, is that it's very, 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 and I posted a kind of a pep talk article about this earlier this week. It's very easy to look at your losses in a game like Hearthstone or something like that as like, oh, well, I didn't have the best cards. Of course I lost.
Yeah.
And it's like, it doesn't really have anything to do with having the best cards. It's like you lost because you made play mistakes. You just got outplayed.
Yeah.
In like anything. And I think that once you kind of learn that, like, well, yeah, you lost, but in actuality you learned, like, well, I shouldn't play my cards in that order because this happens or stuff like that. Like, that's when you start improving as a player. And
yeah, I think it's just the whole, I mean, those games are just you still have to learn how to play. They hit the learning experience as you're figuring things out, I'm sure helps.
I mean, that's why like the League of Legends community is so toxic, because it's very, very, very easy in that game to be like, well, I'm not sucking. It's the 4 other idiots on my team that won't stop dying and stuff like that. When it's like, well, no, I mean, like, it's all part of it, and if you played better, it wouldn't matter if they were doing bad or whatever else. So.
It's also lag too, because I mean, man, right? Almost every death will probably be because of lag.
It's 100% lag.
Every time it's because of lag.
But I mean, yeah, in the card game or anything, even if you give everyone, all the same deck or whatever, just the top cards or whatever you play with, like, and you go one-on-one with somebody and it's your first time playing, that doesn't really help you much. You still have to learn the game,
right?
And that takes a while for some people.
Yeah, so I don't know, it's the way it is, I guess. So we'll see what happens. But thanks a ton for the email, Andrew. I really appreciate it, and I guess good luck in Hearthstone, and hope you open some good packs in the grand tournament. So our final email of what's turned into the ultimate fan feedback episode of the TouchArcade show is from Thomas. He says, "Hi guys, listen to your podcast every week. One of the most enjoyable ways to keep a finger on the pulse of iOS gaming. I lurk around various forums a bit and was slightly surprised that there hasn't been much love for the new iPod Touch. Would love your thoughts on this. I actually just bought a 32 gigabyte one myself with a Logitech PowerShell, and he said he found one for about £5, which is equivalent to about $7.80. He's looking forward to using it as his primary way to play older games such as Sonic, Final Fantasy 3 through 6, and Metal Slug, poke around with the occasional beta of iOS without risking his primary device, and hopefully putting GBA for iOS on there using the source on GitHub unless iOS 9 breaks it. He says, as a cheapish way of doing all that, it fits the bill perfectly for me. I guess I was surprised that there wasn't more people talking about, saying like, oh, actually, this is kind of cool. And I don't know, like, were you guys stoked for the new iPod Touch at all?
Yeah, I actually am. I think it's a great upgrade that brings the iPod Touches, who've been neglected for years now, up into the more recent era. And I mean, I was sort of figured that they were just going to write off iPod Touches and stop selling them.
Yeah.
Because they were just getting so old, and like even the 5th gen iPod Touch is like struggles to do anything nowadays. So it just sort of seemed like, how can they keep selling those things? So I was glad to see them do like a refresh. I think they're awesome devices. You can buy them and they're basically an iPhone, but you don't need any contracts or anything like that. And they're, relatively cheaper depending on if you have, you know, you subsidized pricing or whatever. But yeah, I think they're rad. I just think that since the days of, when iPod touches were more popular, I think a lot of people have moved on to like iPads and iPad minis.
Yeah.
And so there's not as big of a market of people that want like a phoneless device because they've just been getting iPads instead. So, but I think the iPod touches are awesome. I kind of wish there was the larger sizes versions. I would buy a 6 Plus iPod touch in a second.
Really?
But, yeah.
I think that's
But
called an iPad Mini.
That's exactly. Yeah, it's like defeats the purpose of, so whatever.
Yeah, I don't.
I
It's.
think they're cool.
I think that a big part of the reason why you don't see as much fanfare about the iPod Touch anymore is that like when the iPod Touch was real big, it was like the first and second generation iPod Touch, and that was at a time where the iPhone was like still kind of a super expensive new device, not many people had and stuff like that. But I guess if you look at the iPod Touch as like the kind of kid centric device, I guess.
Yeah.
I feel like most parents these days would have like a hand-me-down iPhone or an old iPad or something like that they just give their kids instead of going out and buying this new thing. So like while there was a definite niche in like 2010 2011 for the iPod Touch, I feel like that very much has been satiated by like, oh well, here's my old 5S, shut up, playing games on this or whatever.
Basically. No, I agree.
Because, yeah, I mean, like back in the day, I don't know about most, but a good number of indie developers, I remember, like, did most of their testing on an iPod Touch. Like, they didn't even have an iPhone because iPhones were expensive and, like, the cellular contracts were expensive and all that kind of stuff. I mean, Mike.
Yeah, I didn't get an iPhone until iPhone 4. I was an iPod Touch person.
Yeah, I mean, there you go. Mike Mead, you still have a 5S or something ridiculous like that, right?
I have a 5S, I do.
Wow.
And I have a 4S and a 3G.
Are you going to upgrade this year, do you think?
Yeah, probably. I guess I'll have to. I'm on iOS 7 right now.
Wow.
I should probably update. Do I wait for 9 or should I just update to iOS 8 right before 9 comes out?
I know people that are like that. They stay a year behind iOS updates, which I think is crazy.
if you're going to update, though, like you have to be careful and update before iOS 9 comes out because you're not going to be able to get iOS 8 on your device otherwise. I
always think from a developer standpoint, it's interesting because if we're supporting iOS 7 and 8 in our games, like do I need to keep a device on iOS 7 to test, or do I just bump everything, all the support up?
Yeah.
Like make the games iOS 8 and up, like that kind of stuff. Like
I think if it's possible, you should have every kind of device and every kind of operating system you can.
iOS 4.3 supported.
Yeah, man, why not?
5.1 maybe.
You can have my second gen iPod Touch if you want it.
Oh.
I think I have a second gen iPod Touch laying around here somewhere.
I think I have. I wonder if I might have iOS 5.1 on my 3GS maybe.
Ooh.
I have like my stack of old, like I've had every iPhone like through the end of it or whatever.
Yeah.
I want to charge up my old iPhones and see what's even on them.
Like I know, right? Like what were you playing?
All your cool games. With little open faint logos in the corners of the app icon.
Yeah. It might make for an interesting video. Like, oh, here's my old iPhone and like the 3 games that I had on it. I think probably it would be like a solitaire game, Super Monkey Ball, and maybe like one of those very early Freeverse racing games.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Old school.
Super old school. So yeah, I guess thanks Thomas for the email. Really appreciate it. Thanks everyone for emailing us this week and the positive podcast reviews and all that stuff. It's really, really great to have so much community interaction on this stuff. So yeah, what else should we talk about? Should we talk
games?
Should we talk about Carter's
Did games release?
Yeah, I mean, like I don't know, we're running kind of long, but we can talk about a couple of them, I guess. You want to talk about Race the Sun plus Carter's thing?
I want to talk about Race the Sun actually. What do you mean?
I'll find Carter's story while you started on this rant.
Carter's controversial.
No, it's not a rant. It's so Race the Sun came out on PC like over a year ago, maybe 2 years ago, something like that. Feels like a long, long time ago. And it was weird because I want to say when it first was announced, it was announced as like mobile and PC or something like that. But then it just went PC. or perhaps it was announced as PC and everyone was like, "Why not mobile too?" But they were
I
basically
met
like,
these guys at PAX in
yeah,
2009, maybe
a long time
a
ago,
long
right?
time ago. And I remember like they had their game running on a I want to say it was an Xbox or maybe a PC with an Xbox controller or something like that. And I was like, this is cool, but this is like really weird that you guys have a booth set up here for a mobile game and I'm playing it with my with a controller.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And so, you know, we've always sort of talked about like, um, so it came out on PC and or Steam or whatever, and was like this really huge success and like was really critically acclaimed. People were just writing nonstop nice things about Race the Sun, and I never played it on PC when it came out because I don't really play PC games anymore, and I was always just like puzzled as to like why is this game getting so much crazy, you know, attention and critical acclaim and stuff like that. Like it looks cool. Like it doesn't look like a bad game or anything like that, but it looks like your very run of the mill sort of like endless runner type thing that we've seen a million times before.
No, I remember
Just
like we talked about it multiple times. You're like, man, I feel like I'm taking fucking crazy pills when I read about this
yeah,
game.
like yeah. And yeah, so it just sort of seemed like it seemed weird to us that there was so much love for this game that to us just looked like a neat game, but nothing crazy special, nothing to like lose your shit over.
What was
And
even more
so
confusing is like the exact type of game it is. Like the people that were writing about it and the sites that were writing about it, like just ruthlessly shit on mobile for like basically
yeah,
the exact same
yeah,
things that they were praising this game for. You know, like the daily challenges and the endless modes and like
yeah.
and all
It
that
was
stuff.
sort of it was like Bizarro World for us because we were just
There's
like,
been
what?
there's a couple games that have been on mobile back in the day that had kind of a similar endless flying kind of vibe to it.
Oh yeah,
I
like
remember,
Booze
I don't know if,
2 or like or was it Booze? What was the Cube Runner?
yeah,
Um,
there's Keep Runner. I have that one.
yeah, there's a few games that have been very similar to this, and so anyway, that was maybe what added to our surprise as to everyone just like falling all over themselves for this game on PC, and so anyway, so now it finally came out on mobile, which feels like it should have been on mobile all the time, but whatever, and so I finally get a chance to play this thing, and it's awesome.
Yeah, it's
it's
really
like
good.
it's so good that it makes me like mad. But it's one of those things where you like wouldn't from our perspective where I don't think either of us did you ever play it besides that demo time? Did you play it on Steam or anything?
No, I typically don't play a
I
whole
have
lot
it
of
on
Steam
Steam.
games or
I have
whatever.
it on.
You do?
I have
So
it.
it was like one of those things where I guess you sort of like playing is believing. So we were missing that because we were just kind of seeing it just from our perspective, it just looked like every other game, and it didn't really look like it was anything special. And I'd still argue like it's not like the most groundbreaking game or anything like that. But damn, if they didn't put together like a very fun game that's got a really really intelligent sort of like uh, kind of an unlock system, I guess you could call it. But the way the game gradually kind of like gets more complex the more you play, I think is super smart. And yeah, it's just weird because now that I'm actually playing it, I'm like, damn, I really love this game. It's one of those games that I keep finding myself going to when I have a few seconds to play a game.
Yeah, I
Um,
followed those guys on Twitter before they even released the game, and I remember waiting for it to come out. And it's just
mhm.
one of those things you could tell they took a simple concept and they just polished polished the S out of it. Trying
Yeah,
to make
yeah,
sure it felt good. The controls feel smooth, and I think a lot of people liked it just because it feels good, there
it
was a lot
does.
of let's plays
Feels,
at the time too when it came out. I think
yeah,
that's what helped. That's what helped the success. Is it was a pretty game I think for people to watch, and
yeah,
it was very difficult. So like you'd see someone die all the time, and people like watching people struggle.
yeah. People
Yes.
do like watching that kind of stuff. So yeah, it just kind of tripped me out though that I was like, wow, like this game just looked very average to me, and it surprised me all the love it was getting, and now I can kind of see why. Like I still say maybe some things were a little overboard, but
I would still say
but
it is very much like most of the things inside the game, and I agree it's a really good game like this, but I feel like if this just came out on mobile, just in some random Wednesday, like no one would care.
Oh, it'd probably get shit on by like anyone who like who's currently like loved it on PC.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just like how it is now is like that's how it. I mean, that's how it could have been on mobile long ago, or like last year or something, But
Yeah.
I don't know. I guess that seems to be the strategy for a lot of developers nowadays. Is kind
Yeah.
of
I mean, that
dive
was
all into PC first, so you at least keep a little bit of credibility with PC folks, and then when it
Yeah.
goes on mobile, they don't get that extra dose of hate, and then
And
also
I've actually,
you get
I,
articles from the people who liked it, like from the sites who liked it
yeah,
on PC. They actually report like, "Hey, it's on mobile now," and you get an
right.
article out.
No,
So
it's really true. And I've been hearing that for at least a few years now at things like GDC and stuff, where people are like, "Yeah, we're making this game. Like, yeah, it's probably coming to mobile, but I don't really want to talk about that right now. We focus on the PC release."
yeah.
They know that there's a stigma attached to mobile, and it's kind of unfortunate because it's really I don't want to say it's unfounded because there's a lot of bullshit on mobile that has given it a bad name, but man, there's a lot of bullshit on everything. I mean, you don't see people talking shit about the Nintendo DS, and that
Oh
probably
yeah.
had some of the worst shovelware I've ever seen. Like I'd go into Best Buy, like I feel like getting a new game. Well, let me look past the 30 Hannah Montana games and then the million virtual pet games, and trying to find something that actually appealed to me. And I'd argue that's kind of like been a problem with every system that's ever come out. I mean, there's crappy shovelware games,
Yeah.
It's just so amplified on mobile that I think it gets the unfair sort of label of being like that shitty platform or whatever, and not being a real gamer's platform or anything like that. When in reality, mobile is closer to like a PC than like a game system or anything like that. I mean, it's really very much like PC. They're just shrunken down PCs. So,
good
you know what I
luck
mean?
charging $5 for a flying game that no one knows about really, like
Right.
Right.
right
No,
off the bat.
totally.
I
Yeah.
mean, it'd be a lot, a lot more difficult
Yeah.
to do
I've
that.
had developers that are doing stuff on Kickstarter or Steam Greenlight, like hit me up and be like, "Hey, we're releasing this on mobile too, but don't
Please
post
don't say
anything
anything.
about it."
Yeah.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
don't
Well,
tell
Race
anyone.
the
It's
Sun
like,
was a Kickstarter, I think. not
yeah.
long.
It was.
That's,
Yeah.
but I mean, like
way
that
back
has
before.
happened more than I don't really want to out anyone that's told me that, but it's been way more than a few times of people that
Yeah.
have done Kickstarter games, or it seems like Steam Greenlight more than anything else. If you mention on Steam Greenlight like, oh yeah, PC mobile launch and stuff like that, people are like, oh, get this mobile shit off Steam. What are you doing?
Yeah.
No.
And stuff like
Yeah,
that. As
I-
opposed to like if you just don't mention it at all, people are like, oh hey, this looks neat.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really sad, and this was kind of the thesis of Carter's article. That was kind of like, why is mobile get treated like this second class citizen by every other gaming outlet in the world, whereas it's really just a perception thing. If the exact same game launches on desktop first, it gets showered with love, and then it comes to mobile later, it's celebrated as like, hey, a mobile port. If it comes to mobile first and then goes to PC, it's just ruthlessly shit on by everybody, users and media alike, and it's really not fair, and it's kind of unjustified. And one of his examples, I think, in the article was Wayward Souls, the Rocket Cat dungeon crawler, which is like that was our game of the year last year, right?
Yeah.
Um, God, one of my favorite games of all time across all systems, my whole life. Like I love that game to pieces, and I really feel like it's the kind of game that every gamer would like. It's a very in vogue sort of game right now with this like really difficult dungeon crawling and awesome pixel art style and all this stuff where I feel like, that should be a game that all gamers are like, damn, this is awesome. But you rarely get it rarely gets talked about in circles of gamers or on media outlets or whatever, because I think because it's a mobile game, which sucks because it's one of the best, hardest, awesomest dungeon crawlers that are out there, and that's a hard genre to do right. So it's interesting because that's coming to PC. I want to say in like January is what they're shooting for, and so I'm really interested to see how that reception goes because that's a very much gamers game, I would say. And so if the typical kind of like gamer crowd rejects it because it was a mobile game, I'll think that's really disappointing.
I feel like Rocket Cat has still has some credibility for, with I would hope with the PC crowd, or I don't know,
Yeah.
people that it just seems like their games are
Yes.
not just your typical mobile games, mobile
You know,
games that
I would say that that's true,
You'd
but I
hope.
would say
You'd
that's
hope.
only true for the people that even give like the most the most basic amount of like research into the whole thing, because you'll see it if you go to like, let's say IGN or something, they post about a Rocket Cat game, and it's like 99% like, this is stupid, mobile isn't real gaming, fuck mobile games, all this stuff, and then there will be one comment that's like, hey guys, chill out, I've played these Rocket Cat games, they're not like the shitty mobile games you're talking about, they make awesome games, and whatever. And it's like, most people are so blinded by the hatred for mobile that they're not even going to stop to consider that that could be a possibility, that maybe this is just a really good developer that makes really great games every time, and not the shitty mobile developers that everyone hates.
I mean, portable
So
consoles kind of saw the same thing, like they were kind of
definitely,
always treated by like the core audience as like, oh, I'm not going to play the Game Boy version of this game. Are you fucking kidding me?
yeah,
Stuff like that. But, and now, like, for whatever weird reason, like, portable consoles are taken seriously compared to mobile. I mean, like, super seriously in comparison.
Yeah, weird, right? That's a good point. I never really thought about that, but it's really true. And I think I was just young enough at the time to not really think about it. I never really thought. I mean, like, yeah, you'd sort of laugh at like the janky version of the Game Boy game that was not as good as the NES version or whatever. But I never really like cared about that. I was just like, I loved playing like, the Game Gear Sonic, which was so inferior to the Genesis one, but I didn't care. I like staying up late at night in bed and playing on my Game Gear with its awesome backlight and stuff. So I never really thought about that, but I think that's really true, that handhelds in general have always kind of been thought of as like the inferior to the arcades or the home consoles or whatever. And nowadays you don't really think like that. They're just looked at as like different. Like 3DS, I don't think is looked at as like, oh, it's just this shitty thing you play when you're not around your home console or your PC. It's like a legitimate gaming platform. So
Yeah.
it's weird.
I guess that sums it up. It's weird.
Yeah, that's just all in the media mostly, and commenters. There's millions and millions of people that love their mobile.
I guess that's what makes it more confusing to me than anything else. Is like, if you look at like the mass market mainstream, appeal of mobile, like why as a media outlet would you want to like, cross your arms and go sit in the corner and be like, that sucks.
I don't know.
That's what's I mean, because like, dude, if I was Polygon, like I would be doubling down on mobile like nobody's business, because everyone plays mobile games now, like whether or not they want to admit it or tell their friends they like it or anything like that, like everyone's playing mobile games.
It's like their existing fan base will get too upset. They'll just shit on any article that mentions mobile.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know.
You never know.
Strange.
But I mean, how many? I could probably ask most people that I know if they know what polygon is, and they would probably say, one of those, like a shape or something.
Yeah, that's
It's
true.
a shape. It is a shape. Good
I don't
job.
think I could name any of those sites, and I don't think anyone I know, kids and or anything, would really know what that is or what any of those websites are. But
you mentioned PewDiePie, they'd be like, PewDiePie, oh my
No,
god, you see his video?
Everyone loves PewDiePie. Like I mention PewDiePie to anybody, because all the kids I know, like they all have Minecraft, the Freddy games. It's like that's like those are the two, and those are like paid games on iPhone, and then they have any free game that exists pretty much.
Yeah.
Kind of funny. I'm friends with one of them on like my Game Center, that he'll have a game that like I'll like just download some random free game, and I'll see his name on like Game Center. I'm like, whoa, like that's like he must have just found this game. I don't know where they find the games, but somehow he's either on Apple. I don't really know if some of them are featured, but I know he doesn't look on the internet, I don't think, for like games. I think it's got to be through friends.
What's interesting? I mean, like that is like a super good point. Like I've been got a ton of promo codes lately to give away and stuff like that. I'm giving away on Mob Crush, and like I can't give enough of them away. So last night I was like surfing around on different channels of people streaming and being like, hey, anyone want a promo code? Like, here you go. And no one knew what they were or what you did with them. Or
what are these numbers and letters?
It's like, what the fuck is it? Yeah, people were like, get the hell out of here, spammer. And it's like, no, it's not spam. It's a free game. You just got to put it in iTunes. So
that's amazing.
I don't know.
It's hard to give away games these days, isn't it?
Yeah, I guess so. So should we bring this one home and I guess see what happens if we get another massive avalanche of emails next week?
You go the whole show and you don't even mention Angry Birds 2?
No. God, no. We'll talk about that next week.
We'll talk about that after the aftermath of Angry
after we
Birds.
emerge from our fallout shelters of giving that game a positive review.
That'll give you, I mean, it'll also give a week to see, how it hangs out at the charts or grossing or whatever it does.
Yeah.
Kind of see where it stands.
So, I don't know. I guess thanks for listening to the podcast, guys. If you want to send us an email, like the cool people that have sent us emails so far, please do. It's podcast@toucharcade.com. If you want to leave us a iTunes review, you can also do that too. We got a cool thing that will catch any region, doesn't matter what crazy corner of the world you live in. Leave us an iTunes review, good or bad, we'll read it. I think that's about it. If you're not following us yet on Mob Crush, you really should. And you can do that at mobcrush.com/toucharcade. That's Mob Crush, not Mom Crush.
Don't be fooled. By the Mom Crush.
And yeah, that's about it. I guess all you gotta do is follow the site, and you'll see when we're streaming and a lot of stuff. We got basically everyone's streaming now, a ton. So yeah, I guess that's about it. Thanks for listening, and I hope you enjoyed the podcast, and we'll catch you next week. All right, so I ended our recording, and now I'm going to say goodbye to the Mob Crush people. So thanks for listening live. Sorry this wasn't a very interactive show compared to previous episodes where we've had lots of game talk and stuff like that, but I don't know. It is what it is.
Thanks for watching. We'll be back next week, and we'll be more interactive.
Yes. So
more than one screen change of Eli's iPad next week.
So thanks, guys. Have a good one.